The Imperial cruiser descended through Earth's atmosphere like a metallic leviathan, its hull reflecting the sunlight in blinding flashes. Admiral Vex stood on the command deck, mandibles clicking with anticipation as he surveyed the primitive human settlement below. "These humans rejected our terms of surrender," he announced to his crew. "The Council has authorized a demonstration of Imperial resolve." What the Galactic Empire didn't know, couldn't possibly comprehend, was that this particular settlement housed the children of James Walker, a man who appeared unremarkable by every Imperial scan and intelligence assessment. The orbital bombardment lasted precisely 7 minutes, 7 minutes that transformed the quiet settlement into a smoldering crater. 7 minutes that wiped away the lives of 32 children, including the twins that meant everything to James Walker. He felt their deaths like supernovas in his chest. Miles away on a diplomatic mission, he collapsed mid-sentence, his eyes rolling back as the psychic bond with his children was violently severed. The human representatives around him stepped back in alarm. None of them knew his true identity. None knew that beneath the persona of an unassuming diplomatic aide lurked the being known across a dozen shadowed worlds as the Umbra Rex, the Shadow King. "Sir, are you all right?" asked his assistant Tom. James stood slowly, his face a mask of perfect calm that belied the tempest within. "I need to make a call," he said simply. In his private chambers that evening, James placed his palm on a seemingly ordinary section of wall. It dissolved to reveal an obsidian cube no larger than a playing die. He took it in his hand, and it hummed with recognition. "They're gone," he whispered to the cube. "My children, the Empire." The cube pulsed once, twice, 3 times. Across the galaxy, similar cubes awakened in the hands of those who had sworn themselves to the Shadow King's service. Warriors who had been living as farmers, merchants, and servants among various species, assassins embedded within Imperial ranks, engineers with access to critical Imperial infrastructure, all of them receiving the same message. Asterisk, the shadow falls asterisk. Admiral Vex received commendations for the successful Earth operation. The human resistance crumbled in the following weeks as settlement after settlement surrendered to Imperial rule. Earth became just another conquered world in the ever-expanding Galactic Empire, its new status hardly warranting mention in the Emperor's daily briefings. 3 months later, the first Imperial outpost went dark. The facility on Proxima Centauri B simply ceased all communications. When an Imperial scout ship arrived to investigate, they found the outpost intact but entirely empty. Not a single body, not a drop of blood, just emptiness. 2 weeks later it happened again. An Imperial cruiser disappeared from regular patrol routes. When found drifting in space, its crew had vanished without trace. The Emperor called an emergency council. "These incidents are concerning," said General Kraz, his exoskeleton clicking nervously, "but there is no evidence linking them." "There wouldn't be," replied the Emperor. "This pattern suggests something methodical." It was the Imperial spymaster who first uttered the words that would send shivers through the council. "There are rumors, Your Eminence, among the conquered species. They speak of the Shadow King." The Emperor's compound eyes narrowed. "A myth, a boogeyman to frighten Imperial citizens." "Perhaps," said the spymaster. "Yet these disappearances, they align with the mythology. No violence, no struggle. People simply gone." Within 6 months, 17 more Imperial facilities have been emptied of personnel. Strategic supply lines began failing. Key Imperial officials disappeared from heavily guarded chambers. The Empire's vast intelligence network could find no pattern, no explanation beyond increasingly frequent whispers of the Shadow King. James Walker continued his work in the diplomatic corps, helping to smooth relations between Earth's provisional government and Imperial authorities. His grief remained private, channeled into purpose. At night, he communicated with his network through the Obsidian Cube, orchestrating a resistance unlike any the Empire had faced. It wasn't about violence. The Shadow King didn't want to destroy the Empire. He wanted to haunt it. To make every Imperial official, from the lowest bureaucrat to the Emperor himself, look over their shoulder and wonder, "Am I next?" The Emperor finally demanded action, dispatching elite units to track down the source of the disappearances. None returned. James attended an Imperial gala on Earth, making small talk with an Imperial commander. Fascinating architecture, he remarked, gesturing to the Imperial designs that now dominated Earth's skyline. Yes, the commander replied nervously, though I hear many of our architects have recently taken leave. James smiled politely. Perhaps they found the work unfulfilling. That night, the Emperor himself vanished from his sleeping chambers. The resulting chaos rippled through Imperial ranks like wildfire. 3 days later, Imperial ships across the galaxy received a simple transmission. It showed a recording of the Emperor, alive but clearly terrified, sitting in darkness. I have seen him, the Emperor whispered, compound eyes wide with fear. The Shadow King. He showed me the settlement we destroyed on Earth. He showed me the children. The Emperor's voice cracked. Do you know what he said to me? He said, I won't kill you. I want you to live with what you've done as I must. The recording ended. The next day, the Emperor reappeared in his chambers, physically unharmed but forever changed. He immediately ordered all Imperial forces to withdraw from Earth. In the months that followed, the Empire's grip loosened across dozens of worlds as the Shadow King's network continued its ghostly campaign. No shots fired, no battles fought, just the creeping dread of the inevitable. James Walker stood on a hill overlooking the rebuilt settlement, the graves of his children marked by 2 simple stones. Behind him stood Tom, now one of his most trusted lieutenants. The Empire's withdrawing from the Orion Arm entirely, Tom reported. Their council is in disarray. James nodded, placing his hand on each of his children's gravestones. Will you tell humanity about who you really are? James shook his head. The Shadow King exists in whispers, Tom. That's where his power lies. He turned to face the setting sun. Besides, revenge was never the goal. What was? Tom asked. James smiled sadly, teaching them to fear the dark.